everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Brand Power Analysis. Today I have on
SWEY, an intuitive vision and brand architect. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Zach.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you as well. Why don't you explain a little bit your title, visual architect? Is that what you said?
An intuitive vision and brand architect. Yes.
Intuitive. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am an intuitive vision and brand architect, like I mentioned before, and I'm also a multi-potentialized entrepreneur with 6 different businesses. And what that really means in a nutshell is that I'm incredibly passionate about activating power-packful, revolutionary, iconic brands for multi-potentialized like myself, who do not believe in the niche down system or in being in a container of XYZ labels. So that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, me being a multi-potentialite myself. And for me, when I speak of my title as an intuitive vision and brand architect, I'm really all about connecting the multi-purposeness of an individual and translating that in their brand so they can actually go ahead and pursue the different things that light them up without compromising with their financial freedom. So that's me in a nutshell.
Now, that was a beautiful way to put it, and I think we have a lot to talk about to dive into that whole statement there. But can you give a little bit of idea on how you, let's just say a brand or a business owner or someone came to you to ask for your help? What would you kind of go through some of those processes that you would go through up front to kind of help them find that happiness in that all the endeavors that they're taking?
Oh, yes. So very recently, just 2 days ago, I onboarded a new client, and she's, again, one of my dream clients. I love speaking to the multi-passionate who wants to actually express their creative expressions. So she came in, and her big vision is to create a brand that has multiple different streams that are also full-blown businesses with different business models. And that's kind of my specialty. And what I see is I like to tap into their vision. So I call this a vision crafting space where I really tap into their vision. My background is as a cognitive behavioral psychologist and a 7th-generation bloodline oracle. So kind of take both of them and tap into their energetics to really see what is the main purpose of the multi-purposeness that they want to bring forth. And then we kind of dive into the human design, what I call the combinational charts. Again, this is my unique approach. I combine numerology, Vedic astrology, human design, and gene keys. And this kind of fleshes out the strategy of how their purpose wants to be manifested. And these kind of have the main moving pieces of how does the psyche work? Then how does the psyche match with the energetics? How do we create that frequency, not just on an individual basis, but on a whole ass brand that translates that in the, marketing spaces, the sales spaces, the communication spaces, the different spaces that the brand actually needs to show up so that there's alignment, not only internally for the visionary behind the brand, but also everyone that's receiving the brand on the outside. So that's the main process that I go through. Yeah.
No, that sounds very interesting. It sounds very enlightening. It sounds like you go through a spiritual kind of journey with all of your clients.
It's very intimate, very intimate. But also, I'm someone who has 6 different businesses, so I'm kind of really bringing in my own personal entrepreneurial journey in terms of the non-cookie cutter approach. I'm a very anti-niche, anti-traditional brand strategist. So when I look at these energetics and the psychology behind it, what I am really passionate about is making that work for the specific person, the visionary that's here to do. A lot of times that the clients that come to me, they're really tired. They have something that I call the traditional brand fatigue or traditional brand strategy fatigue. They come in and they're really exhausted of trying these methods that has brought them immense amount of success. So most of my clients are really high end. They have six-figure, 7-figure businesses. But there is this fatigue around the fact that things are not working in the frequency that they'd like to. So there's more time that's being taken up, or they're not being visible and not being seen for whatever they're trying to do. Let's say they launched a new business and they already have 2 other businesses. They're feeling a little lost because the communication is not happening with their audience, with their community. There's this difference in transition from like, hey, I've got all these 2 different businesses, they're doing well. Now I have to launch this 3rd business and it's not making sense to my community. It's not making sense because the audience, the community isn't prepped to receive the brand that way. that's where the main frequency, where I call the frequency mess is happening. So yeah, it is a very intimate experience that I bring, because I'm not just focusing on cookie cutter strategies. I'm focusing on creating a space where my clients feel safe enough to express themselves and actually allow their community to go on that journey with them. Yeah.
No, that's crazy. And you also own 6 businesses, so you've kind of went through this. And me owning a multi 6-figure business myself, there comes and being a visionary myself, I've seen firsthand. And I think that I really try to push when I'm talking and bringing in my ideal client. Hey, like these pain points exist, like the burnout exists, the things, and so many people, you see the business from the outside go, oh, like it looks so clean and structured.
Mm,
And then, the business owners in here like waking up at 4 a.m, like, oh man, this needs to be done by this time, and this person's not communicating correctly, or this person's not doing this. And I think that with what you said, it's something that I'm really trying to preach, which is, I think that a lot of people that grow to that next stage in business, they lose their values. They
mhm,
lose, and it's not their fault. It's this whole concept of you're evolving as a person, but
yeah.
also it's very easy as you continue to grow to start losing. Oh, I'm gonna overserve here, or I'm gonna just let this client in because I think that we need the money, because right now we're not a multi-million-dollar business. We can't just tell
Mm,
clients to go bye-bye all the time, and
mm,
and then they get to a point where they're lost. They lost their why, they're burnt out, they don't know their purpose. And if I have to hear someone come to me and say again, like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I see myself. And I think,
yeah.
as you said, you have a child, I have two, and one on the way. There are certain things in life that certain people can't understand, and
Absolutely.
you know and but I'm getting off topic here a little bit. No, I'm not really getting off topic, but uh
No, I actually love what you shared, because first of all, I resonate so much with the whole ideology behind purpose. One of the things that I love talking about is, and this is something that has made me a thought leader in my own multi-potentialite field, is that I look at the word purpose and really deconstruct it. A lot of times in society, when we speak of the word purpose, it's almost like the whole picture is not shown. When society talks about purpose, it's talked about that one big calling, that one thing that you're meant to do. But that is factually so impossible, because we as human beings, we wear a lot of identities. We don't just have a single identity, we're multi-identity identified. And we have a lot of different we're multifaceted, multidimensional. So it's impossible to have one purpose. Given so, the very concept of purpose that has kind of diluted over the years, even if you read like really the biggest of the biggest philosophers that have kind of brought the term purpose into our world, they specify and they focus, which has missed out in so many different spaces, is that it's ever evolving. Our purpose is ever evolving, because we as human, and when we look at ourselves from a human centric point of view instead of a society or structure centric point of view, we are speaking to ourselves being in alignment with our evolution. So a lot of times, the reason why a lot of brands fade away, or they, kind of reach the point of burnout, businesses close down, is because the visionary behind the brand is not leading their brand based on their values. A lot of times that my clients that come through, they have spent a lot of time creating a brand based on what they do instead of their values. So I want to
Mhm.
share like an example of Reese Witherspoon. You've heard of her,
Mhm.
right? Actress. But she's not just known as an actress. She's a producer, she's a director, she's got her own book club. That woman is doing so many different things. But when someone wants to work with her, they're not coming to her. They're not approaching her from the perspective of, oh, we want to work with you because we know you do XYZ. No, they're approaching her based on the fact that we have heard that these are your values, or this is something that you really care about. And, this is in alignment with us. And that's what I'm incredibly passionate about, because I truly believe that every single one of us on this walking earth is multipotentialized. That means we have multiple streams of potential within us. And so when we think about a visionary creating a brand or evolving a brand, not one single brand out there in today's world is of one purpose. And to be very honest, today in today's world, you cannot sell anything to anyone based on one purpose. A while ago, when we used to sell phones, right? It was sold on one purpose. And today, nobody, not you, not I, nobody is going to buy a phone based on one purpose, which is calling. If it does not have multiple different functions, if it does not serve multi-purposeness to it, it's not going to last. So every single big brand out there, or brands that are making actual impact directly or indirectly, they have cultivated a brand that is fully foundational on the core values of the brand. What do they really care about? What do they stand for? And so when you start, thinking of a brand from the lenses of that, and then build a strategy based around that concept and philosophy, it's more sustainable, because the new luxury of today is accessibility, inclusivity, sustainability. And none of this happens when you drive yourself up a wall of, I have to reach XYZ based on just what I do, because that's when you reach brand fatigue, brand strategy fatigue, frustration, burnout, all of that stuff. So yeah, like I totally resonate with what you said.
Yeah, I think one thing that you said within that I'm really intrigued to get to know about, because other people would call it, hey, you're first to market, and that's why your audience isn't you're not building that audience that you are, that community that you want. Is when you mentioned frequency, that your community isn't aligned yet with the frequency of your brand. And can you elaborate on that frequency a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I take through in the journeys with the clients that I work with is, what do your clients, their dream clients, desire? What do they feel instead of the end goal? A lot of times when we think of marketing, um, marketing bros and the people who have created these traditional norms around marketing, which has worked for a while, but they're fading out now, they focus on the destination. And
Mhm.
while everybody loves the destination, the main focus is around the journey. And when we think about the journey, we're not looking at the highlight reels of the journey. We're looking at the moments that really mattered. And those moments usually don't come in forms of pretty packages. They are the moments where, oh man, I really wanted that, or that experience felt so good to me. These are the moments that leave impact. So when I'm working with my clients, I really ask them to go like, if you're going to be having a community and audience come towards you and you want them to be on the same frequency as yourself, you need to be prepared to invite people into your community or speak to the community based on the journey that they're on. And when I speak about this journey, the frequencies that they're on is, what do they desire? What are those emotions that they feel? What do they care about? What are their own values and belief systems? Because that's something you can speak to. For example, with my own brand, my brand is Sway, but I've got 6 different businesses that literally function to this. And each of those businesses have different business models. But whenever I walk into a room, people know me as Jill of all trades, master of most, yet they know that, oh, we can go to her because there's this alignment and value. This is a space that she can speak to, or this is a journey she resonates with. There are those human-centric main points that allow us to have an easeful conversation. You cannot have those easeful conversations if the frequency is not in alignment, right? Right now, as I'm having this conversation with you, you and I are on the same frequency because there's so much that we have that is in similarity, number one, but also there is this curiosity around the exploration of the topics that we're talking about. And most brands forget about those little moments in their journey, in their client's journey to speak to. And once you don't have clarity, and when you don't have clarity around that, it's very difficult to market in a way that feels in alignment, not just to you or, or them. Because I feel a lot of times traditional marketing talks about, creating marketing campaigns or going about marketing in a way that's very forceful, very intrusive. And it really focuses on the business owner instead of the clients. When in reality, we do marketing for what? a two-way street. It's a two-way street where we're keeping in mind ourselves, our brands, what we're putting to the table, but also to the people that we're catering to. So if we don't speak their language, and when I say speak their language, we're not on the same frequency as them, we don't share the same values, we don't have the same experiences in some capacity or the other, that's it. Frequency is lost and connection is disrupted. So yeah.
That's beautiful. I think that in short, you're, because you're right. I think that going off of the outcome, I mean, marketing companies in general, because we do marketing too, but one thing that I've tended to see a trend of, and this is actually going to be something that I speak on in my TED Talk, is I hate marketing. And it's like, I grew this business. I hate marketing, but it's not that I hate marketing. I hate the fact of how it's become so transactional. Everyone's looking towards, hey, how much does this cost? Or how do we do this? Or how do we do that? And they don't really dive in and think about, like you said, the customers, or their employees, and think, okay, how do these values that I have internally, and how are the pain points of my story? People want to see that stuff. People love to see, I mean, because like everyone says, failures are an indicator of true success. Going through those failures and being able to enjoy the journey and find those failures. And it's so hard today in today's market, because everyone's striving to reach that million, that 10 million, that 20 million, that they lose sight of the fact of, hey, you need to enjoy the game, and you need to enjoy getting there. Especially when you start hitting certain plateaus in the business, where it's like, oh, well, I mean, customers, why are you selling a product to a customer? At the end of the day, don't you want that customer to take that product and be like, hey, I'm going to go use this right now. Like, this is, it's helping them fulfill their purpose. And if they're in alignment with your purpose, then you're going to be able to make a product that builds retention, builds a solid client base, but you're also, that's how you're giving back. That's how you're helping. And like you said, it's very easy for people to just, sell. They lose sight of, hey, no, this product is supposed to be for my customer to help them. And that's how companies are going to start building a community, is by thinking about the customer, employees. I can state on two hands right now the amount of employees I hired and then they left because they did not match. I could state right off the bat, like, they didn't match, one of our values, and that right there, I was like, that's why they didn't work out. And that's why when we go through hiring, now I focus solely on, questions around our values and what I value, because those are the people. They may not be the greatest at the position yet. They may not be the best. They may not be the worst, but they can learn if they match our values and they follow a similar purpose, And so that's amazing that you said that, because that's exactly where our world needs to go. And that's kind of where you and I kind of relate, in the fact of, like, this is how people can build a successful business. And it doesn't have to be about money. It can be about defining your purpose or multi-purposes, and being able to live happily with your family, your friends, your personal time. So absolutely. You mentioned a little bit about, you have 6 businesses now. Yeah. And with, one thing that you brought up is, which I think is a very funny thing, because I had this trouble myself, with, happens very heavily in marketing, which is what I call McDonald's marketing, which is, hey, let's just take one service. Let's hire and automate it with 2 to 3 people and focus on a brand. And my biggest struggle was always, especially when it comes to branding, is like, well, every business is going to be different. Even if they're in the same industry, they're going to have a different market. They're going to possibly a different market. They have different purposes. So how can a certain automated system somewhat help everyone when in reality things should somewhat be custom, especially with branding?
Yeah.
And so can you relay a little bit more about your 7 businesses, how you've been able to effectively do that without necessarily, I'm not going to say automating, but accidentally turning into that style of business, and
Yeah.
how you continue to be able to take the time out to work on all
Yeah.
those different purposes.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, I love that you brought up McDonald's. I don't know if you've heard, but McDonald's has completely revamped their brand. They're no longer family centered and family oriented. They're for those late nighters, those late night people. They've completely revamped their their brand, which is so incredibly cool in today's world for a big brand like that to take that pivot. But the question about me being in the space of, leveraging automation to a healthy level where I can still continue doing everything that I'm doing and make impact. I believe the biggest thing that happened, and I'm going to share a tad bit of a story. 10 years ago, I've been in this space for a decade now in my entrepreneurial journey. 10 years ago, when I started my business, I hired a lot of people based on their qualifications and based on, oh, this is really something that I'm good at. And what that taught me is that despite the fact that we reached within our first, this was with my media production house, Kaleidoscopic Vision. At that time, we reached our 6 figures within 3 months, which was great. I loved it. But after that, we kind of met a heavy decline. And that was because there was a lot of things in place that were no longer repeatable. There are some tasks within business operations, whether you're approaching it through marketing lenses, strategy, whatever you want to call it, that you want to make sure that they're repeatable, they're sustainable. But the things that we were doing were not sustainable. They were great for like a one-timer, boom, done. So one of the things that I have learned as someone who has multiple 7-figure businesses is that I need to let go of things that I'm not best at. I am really good at everything. And I think every single entrepreneur who's got multiple things going on, because we wear so many different identities, we're automatically conditioned to be good at multiple different things. But just because we're good at multiple different things does not mean we take on things that are not part of our genius zone. And what I mean by that is that our genius zones are specifically towards spaces that comes easy to us. And in my case, one of the things that I had to do is create spaces for me to learn how can I take this thing that I'm good at, but replicate it in a way that doesn't take too much energy off of me. So I'm going to give an example of my entire team uses AI now. We leverage AI like no tomorrow. But the biggest difference I have seen in terms of hiring people who are really good at what they do, but versus people who are good at what they do, but not great at what they do, but they can leverage and really adapt with different things that are coming up, is the very fact that they can actually adapt the thing that they do in itself. So right now, my businesses, despite the fact that we have multiple different employees doing multiple different things, they make their own work easier because they've learned how to make their work easier. And so to keep things afloat, I always promote, it's not about you doing it well. It's about how can you make something else do it well for you. And with AI, one of the things that I've seen with my clients is that they use AI and they're like, oh, it's going to magically happen and it's going to make things work for them, create copy for them, marketing things for them, automate shit for them. And it's great. It does that. But then after a while, you start realizing how robotic that is, how that approach becomes unsustainable, but you can make that sustainable. Are you willing to put in that effort to make that sustainable? And you're not going to be willing to put that effort in if you're not curious enough to go like, how do I know my brand well enough? Do I know how to communicate that well enough to the XYZ things that I'm doing? Like literally, I think earlier today, I was sitting with ChatGPT and I was trying to get something automated for my team to show them like, okay, I want it like this. And I'm big on, I want to be the representation for my team and my multiple different teams that I'm working with to show them that this is the standard that we're going for. And if I cannot do it, there's no freaking way that I'm going to tell them that I'm going to give them shit for not doing it or not being able to do it, because I feel like a good leader is someone who has tried, tested, and done it for themselves to actually go like, okay, this is the best practice, right? So I was sitting with ChatGPT and I wanted to create this automated space for one of our upcoming offerings. And ChatGPT was hitting a wall. And I was like, okay, let's just try to reframe this. And I remember one of my team members, she was like, hey, this is just not happening. This is what's coming up. And because we have been prepped to adapt so quickly, and that's kind of one of the values that I bring forth, anyone that I'm hiring as well, adaptability is key. You need to be able to adapt. You need to be curious enough to learn how can I adapt to the situation. So it was very easy for us to kind of overcome that hurdle by changing up the prompts, playing around with the prompts. And then finally ChatGPT was like, oh, okay, I got it. I know what you're talking about. And we were in flow again. So for me, the automation part comes from having clear communication with myself as to what do I want to automate and how far do I want to take that automation and how can I make that automation completely seamless with every part of my business operations so that from customer journey to internal communications to every aspect of my brand is in alignment. Not one thing is missing in comparison to the other. So I think that's my perspective in terms of automating to still be afloat, which is adaptability. I love being adaptable and I love having spaces in my life with the people that I'm working with where we're striving towards adaptability so we can sustain our brand. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think that I hear a lot of people, and I think especially in the industry of being creative, you hear so many content writers, designers, everyone in the creative space getting worried about AI technology, saying, "Oh, this is going to take over my job." And I tell my employees all the time, like, "Hey, the creativity is not going away. Like, you still need to write great writing, you still need to design great designs. Just use ChatGPT as a way to automate, like you said, simplify the journey of maybe some of that exploration and or a way that you can come up with, an outline per se, go through and brainstorm, come up with an outline and or with the design, very similar concept. Use it to kind of give you some ideas on how you can do this or how you can do that. Because you're right, like automation is one of those things. I think a lot of people see the and I mean I do it all the time myself, the shiny object syndrome, where I'm like, oh, this is going to solve everything in the business, and then you get it and you're like, oh, there's like a 20-30 hour learning curve to it, and you're like, it's just easier to do it by hand at that point. But yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that you brought up that using ChatGPT in a very specific way, but also what I think the key point here with the whole ideology of AI is going to take over our jobs. No, it's people who can use and leverage AI in a creative way that's going to take over the job. That means you got to be extra creative and actually spend time on your creativity to be able to leverage AI in a creative way. A lot of the people, especially, we actually had 2 weeks ago, like a new hiring wave. And one of the things that we wanted to see were the differences, which I brought up before. People who are independently creative are very like, no, I'm not going to use AI. I feel like my skills are XYZ good enough. And then in comparison to people who were using AI or keeping up with evolving technology, the biggest thing that we noticed was the fact that the people who were keeping up with evolving technology, they were just highly more creative, just way more creative because they were so adaptable to the technology because they had the curiosity from their creativity to actually use that and double up their creativity. So if they were, on a scale of 10, they were 8, they used AI to make themselves a 10. And that's the kind of people we need around us for, building, cultivating a brand that's going to be in alignment in every space. Right. So yeah, I really resonated with that.
I want to get back to purpose a little bit because you have 6 businesses. So, and you've been in the game for 10 years. And so, through your story, why don't you talk a little bit about, I mean, because I think this happens to everyone, like what point in, we'll just say your first business, did you really kind of finally take that leap yourself and say, hey, something needs to shift here. I'm not happy. I have burnout, because I have a feeling that that's how you've come to this conclusion, is going through your own experiences. So can you tell people a little bit like where you are at in your journey, and how you came to that resolution to kind of go this new direction?
Oh, yes. I want to say, and I want to preface that my journey to my multi-potentialite self and, being a multi-potentialite entrepreneur didn't start 10 years ago. It actually started when I was 10. I remember 10-year-old me, she was kind of going through spaces where everyone around me at that time were like, oh, yeah. Every time the teacher would be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? There would be one specific thing. And ever since kindergarten, all the way up till my adulthood, as you can see right now, 10-year-old me was like, no, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a teacher. I want to be this. I want to be that. And my teacher at that point said, that's not possible. And every adult around me kind of repeated that same narrative. And I was tired of it. 10-year-old me was frustrated because at that point, we were also coming around the corners of 9th grade, 10th grade, getting into 9th grade, 10th grade, where you have to choose your subjects to then go on to, go into A levels and then continue on to university. And I felt like I was being pushed towards being that one thing, when I felt in every aspect of myself that I was meant for more than just one thing. Multipurposeness was my design. It was a design that I was meant to do. So there's nothing wrong about that. So fast forward, I turned 15 and, there's a lot of pressure around me like, hey, you need to choose university. Mind you, around that time, I had already chosen subjects that were completely variant. Like I was taking psychology and art and multiple different things at the same time, sciences, arts, everything mixed together, because I told every adult around me, I don't want to miss out on opportunities that could come through my multipurposeness. And so around that time, even my career counselor was like, Sway, you need to really think about that one thing. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to do multiple different things and I'm going to make it work. So I graduated from the University of Cambridge, and everybody told me, hey, don't go for an Ivy League, because there's, less chances of getting in and less chances of you being able to do what you really want to do. But I was stubborn. I was really stubborn. 15-year-old me was like, no, we're going to do this and we're going to do this our way. Fast forward, I got back. I sent this very heartfelt letter to the dean at that time, and basically requesting that I need to do double majors with honors because of my multipurposeness. And I wrote this beautiful essay about multipurposeness, how I felt that I was designed to do so, blah, 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 blah. And the dean allowed me. In University of Cambridge, you usually don't get to do double majors, let alone do honors in double majors. So I was incredibly grateful to have that opportunity. Then after that, I finished my university. I'm about to go into my workforce. I actually, prior to my entrepreneurial journey, I was a full-time special educator for adults and children on the spectrum. And while on the side, having my own private practice, but I was a partner in the private practice instead of it just being my own. And during that time, I was just so exhausted by the education system, not because of the usual, issues that the education system has, but it was so much about the fact that the education system was just focusing on cultivating children and their mindsets to be very obedient instead of creative. Critical thinking was less appreciated and obedience was more appreciated. And I was just not about that, because how can the next generation go ahead and create greatness out of following footsteps that are just, very A to Z, the same to same to the same. So I got really tired and I turned in my resignation and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. By that time, when I was leaving the workforce, a lot of the people that I had met, because I'm a people person, were like, Sway, we want you to come and speak in seminars. I got awarded as the youth thought leader. And from there on, certifications and awards just coming through. After that, I started my own podcast, which became a full-blown business model. And then I launched my media production house. So I was already doing 3 things. I had a full-time business as a speaker, my own podcast, and my media production house. At this time, we had already 3 months in, we had already hit six figures in all of them. I was making six figures as a speaker, my podcast was making six figures, and the media production house was making six figures. And the turning point at that time wasn't the fact that I reached a burnout, but the realization that things can be easier if I didn't focus on creating these multiple different businesses on multiple different purposes. So what that meant was that every single person, the reason they were becoming our customers, becoming our clients, were because they were intimately connected to me. And that intimacy was cultivated because I treated my clients, and till date, this is what all my employees do in all our businesses. We treat our clients like clients even before they become our clients. That's the type of a tongue twister. But yeah, the customer journey began way before they even became our customers. And that set the tone for my brand. Every single person they would choose, and they would say this specifically when they would come work with me, we wanted to work with you because you made us feel XYZ than the rest of the other people that we met about this particular project or this particular thing. And this wasn't just for the project that we did as my media production house, but also as why I was selected as a speaker in comparison to the other 100 that was waiting in line to be part of that event, or why I was approached instead of me having to actually apply. So there was a lot of resonance that I have collected from then. That was the pivotal moment, realizing that I am big on customer journey. My brand is all about making my community feel a part of my community, even whether they're buying from me right now or not. In fact, we don't have, even in our businesses right now, we don't track. We don't do the tracking. We don't do anything that's systematic in the way where we're following up with a client after, X period of time or so, because we really believe in the frequency of, if it's a hell yes, it's a hell yes, because we have cultivated this very unique customer journey. And if it's a hell no, there's a reason. And we're not going to be pushing behind that because we don't have that tactic and that intention behind it. So yeah, that was the biggest pivot of creating this beautiful customer journey that didn't just make them feel good, but also made me feel good, because whether they work with me or not, I was creating these beautiful connections that down the line meant something, whether that was, in a month's time or another month's time. And so every single employee that I have and every single person that I work with till date, we have created the system of every person is an opportunity, whether that opportunity is, right there in your face, or it's something that's going to be cultivated over time. So yeah, I think that was that pivot. It wasn't more burnout or frustration. It was that epiphany of like, this is it. This is what makes my brand the way it is. And this is what makes every single client that I've worked with, their brand's a success. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love that because that shows that it doesn't always have to be from a failure, but it was from experiences in your past, and possible failures along that way. But it finally led you to that realization. And you're right. It's okay. I mean, I think so many people out there say, "Hey, niche, 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 niche," but you kind of somewhat don't have to, depending on how you grow your brand and that's the funny thing is you're right, because customer journey and branding really relates to marketing, you know, public speaking. It relates, especially if you're building brands and you're helping people understand the importance of branding, and that all relates. And so when people are like, well, it sounds like you have 6 different businesses going on, you need to pick one of those and grow it. It's like, well, I already have a good system down for it, and so I think that that's beautiful that you kind of just told yourself, hey, this is who I am, and this is how we're going to grow the brand. And how much stress did that relieve from you once you kind of came to that realization?
Oh, heaps. I I let go of one of the coaches that I was working with, who was a business coach at that time, who was really going down. And I loved her work. I feel like some people who are doing the traditional work, they have a gift of, doing the traditional work in their own unique magic. But it wasn't working out for me. And there was a big relief when I had this conversation with my business coach at that time, like, hey, I think I figured out what works for me. And so this traditionalism just isn't my vibe. The relief I felt after was so immense, to the point I was showing up in spaces so much more authentically, so much more in alignment, that the decline that I mentioned, within the next 4 or 5 months of that, I just revitalized everything that was kind of dormant. Everything became sustainable. Every process in place was just repeatable. Everything became so beautifully seamless that there was safety, internal safety, where I didn't have to worry, like, oh my God, why is Aiden not doing this for this? And why is Jessica not doing this for this? Or do we have to follow up with this? There was just so much more relaxedness, and I brought that relaxedness into my team meetings. And my goodness, the morale of my, entire team just went from here to here. And everybody was vibing. I know that sounds cliche, but every single person in every team meeting, we had more laughters, more joy. When we were talking about things, it just felt so natural, instead of like, oh, we have to meet these metrics or do X, Y, Z, because it became second nature to us. It became an extension, an authentic extension of how the brand was operating from a human-centric point of view, which just felt so connected to our souls. And it created not just the fact that the morale increased, but for me, myself, I just felt so much more intimate with everything that I was doing. It felt good to pour my heart out without feeling that scarcity of like, oh my goodness, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. I just felt safe. Like, okay, I can do this my way without giving a flying F about anything.
That's beautiful. Hopefully that gives some people a words of encouragement. It's definitely given me even words of encouragement, because me myself, like I said, I've kind of going through that somewhat over the last, year myself. I think a lot of it does come down to, once you start growing a family, that your values evolve and change around that even. But that's beautiful. So I think the last question of the day is if someone were to be in this situation right now, if they were to be in this situation, very, stressed out, may have burnout, maybe like, hey, I want to take this path or this path, I'm just stressed out. How would you feel would be a good starting point for them?
Ooh, I love this. The golden theme. Find your golden theme. Every single time that you have an interest that pops up for you, specifically, like you said, changing values and evolving, keep your evolution in mind, and create a list of things that you're really interested in. I know that sounds silly, but take out the time to do that. Take a pen and paper, write down all the things that you're interested in, and find the value that each of those interests bring in your life. What are the values that they connect with? Is it the value of integrity? Is it the value of freedom? Is it the value of XYZ? And then you will find your golden theme. There is a resonance between all those interests that turn into businesses, that turn into offerings, that turn into products. That resonance is your golden theme. And that's the golden theme you're going to go into networking events, you're going to go into your marketing with, because that will be the chariot for your brand. So if right now you feel a little bit lost and you're not sure, as soon as you find your golden theme, you don't need to have anything in place. Just go in, because this literally actually worked I had like a 2-hour power VIP session with a client. And we did this exercise with her. She went into a networking event and she booked on 3 different projects that were completely different from each other, absolutely different from each other. And that all related to the values of her brand that were communicated through that golden theme. So that's what you need to be doing right now. If you're in this space, you're in a situationship with your brand, find out what is the golden theme of your brand and communicate that. Focus on creating content, going and having conversations and relationships around the golden theme. So whether you have anything set up or not, whether it's, having ready to go products, something to launch already, or a website up, whatever it is, you don't need to have any of those ready yet. As long as you can communicate your golden theme, you're good to go, and you will have things landing in your lap instead of you having to chase behind things. So yeah, that would be my go-to.
Beautiful. The golden theme. I'm going to say that again so everyone can relate. And I'm actually going to go through right now after our call and put it into my daily journal itself.
Go for it.
So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place, I have multiple different playgrounds where my brand is doing a play presence. But the best way to reach me is through Instagram or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more of my go-to, but Instagram is where you will see me sharing more of the behind the scenes and all that stuff. All you need to type in any of these spaces is sway to success, because that's my motto. I'm here to sway you to your success.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that liner. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Brand Power Analysis. And again, it was a pleasure having you on. And hopefully this isn't the last time that we talk.
Absolutely. I had such a blast. Thank you so much for having me on here, Zach.
Me too. Me too.